want to talk about Iowa because they got run out of the gym in the second half against Indiana. And I went back and I watched it, and I'll have something on my newsletter tomorrow about it. So I got all the takes, man. I got fresh takes on this game. I just watched it, but to me, the issues that Iowa had defensively were glaring and were evident. But the biggest problem facing them from that game is that so Luka Garza didn't get a post touch. Like Indiana went on that 23-3 run.
Yeah.
Luka Garza didn't get a post touch that during that entire run. There was an 8-minute stretch where he did not get a single touch on the block. And that's because Indiana just started doubling him, and Iowa shot 1 for 10 from 3 in the second half. The only 3 that they made in the second half was when Luka Garza hit one when Iowa was down 13 with 27 seconds left in the game. That was the only thing they made in the second half. And to me, that right there is why Iowa can't win a national title. They might be able to get to a Final Four, but that's why they can't win a national title, because their defense is not good enough to carry them to wins on the nights where teams are able to shut down Luka and Iowa's not making their threes. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't even argue with you in that scenario, where I still think they have an opportunity. We have the player of the year on your team, like, which he's going to be. He's going to be. Like, I can't. They have a good chance, like a really good chance. Final Four, I can foresee that being the case, especially. But I still think they have a good chance to get into the NCAA championship. Even with their defensive issues, the problem with me with their defense is that they just don't stop anything. Like they don't it's hard to like watch. It's almost like, all right, cool. They don't stop threes from going up, so they don't run people off the line. They kind of play contain, but then they don't contain either. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like you can get whatever shot you want, kind of, which was kind of happening. Like they beat them off the dribble. They beat them in transition. They got a bunch of baskets in transition early because they weren't even in the end. It wasn't really. I would say they weren't like dominant in the first half, not super dominant, but they got some easy baskets early, and then they got comfortable as the half went on. I mean, their defense, as far as Iowa's, it showed in the second half. Like it was telling.
So I thought Iowa they played pretty well defensively in the first half. But that's because Indiana wasn't really running anything after they switched to a zone. Iowa went to a zone, and Indiana didn't really. Them. Yeah, but for the last 12 minutes or so of the first half, Indiana didn't really move at all. They were just kind of swinging the ball on the perimeter. They would have one guy try to attack a gap. He wouldn't get anywhere, and then they'd just go back to swinging the ball around. There was no movement whatsoever. And this matchup zone that Iowa plays, they were able to match up out of it pretty easily because there wasn't all kinds of movements. Whereas in the second half, what they did to really fuck them up was the first play of the second half, instead of passing to a wing, what they did was they just had Al Durham dribble over to a wing. And since you're playing that matchup zone, Jordan Bohannon was locked up on the man with the ball. When the guy went baseline, Connor McCaffrey tried to pass him off to the guy on the opposite wing, except the guy that was supposed to be on the opposite wing was guarding Trace Jackson Davis, who was at the rim. So Connor McCaffrey passed him off, but no one told him that was you have to guard, Trace Jackson Davis is right there. That communication was not there. So he was just kind of in no man's land, floating around at the foul line with no one to really guard. The ball got swung back to the top. Joe Wieskamp is pointing, trying to pass him off, trying to give him to someone. And McCaffrey goes to the guy at the top of the key, which should have been Bohannon's man because they should have switched there and passed him off. And no one was guarding Trey. It was literally the most wide open I've ever seen a first team All-American on a college basketball court.
But
no one within 10 feet of him.
But that's the issue when they go into these zones, because they don't. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like they have any principles with their zone. Usually, when we ran zone in college or even in pros, it's the man-to-man principle with the zone a little bit. Obviously, you're gonna have a man. You're gonna have certain people in that vicinity, in your area. But I mean, that's the problem with zones in general. Because you can't guard man-to-man, you're gonna give up spots. Now.
It's the communication, right? We talked about this with Florida State, where the man-to-man that they play is kind of like a zone because they're passing every exchange, they're just passing people off. And you have to have that. You have to have in a matchup zone, you have to have great communication.
And you have to have great physicality. And that's one of the things that Iowa is missing because, I mean, besides Luka Garza, of course, but, when you're switching and you're supposed to stop guys like for Florida State, they're stopping guys, at least at the foul line. Maybe they get walked in because the guy's stronger than them, or whatever the case may be. But, where Iowa is, like, they switch, they don't touch anybody. Everybody's moving around. They don't show any type of resistance at all. And
a lot of straight line drives,
tons.
Yeah. Tons. And it's like, you just like when someone like just kind of squares you up, hits you with a jab one way, and it goes the other way and gets exactly where he wants to go to his spot. Like that's when you're not very good defensively. Like
they got beat baseline the entire game.
Yeah. Like I one jab and then get where you want to go off of one jab when you're just squaring somebody up like that. That should not happen at that level. So like it's a problem. And I've kind of come around to the idea that in a vacuum, Iowa's defense is not like they can win a title with the defense, like the way that they play defense, assuming that they never have an off night offensively. But
exactly.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. Exactly.
Is that when you have that off night and what Indiana did. So in the first half, Indiana just let Luka go one-on-one on the block every time he touched. They played behind him. They let him catch, and they just tried to like go one-on-one with Trace Jackson Davis. And like, that was a horrible fucking idea.
Then they switched. Then they got him off him, and they put what's his name on him? Was it Thompson? Was it Thompson?
They put Race Thompson on him. And like Race would like he did fine. And then in the first half, like he was like Luka was still killing him. In the second half, I thought it was interesting. What they did was they put Geronimo. They put a 6'6" freshman big. They put Race Thompson. They fronted everything, and they doubled him on a catch. And they just said, we're going to make you throw that pass over the top. And they got him a couple times.
Was it in a catch? Because it looked like it was in a dribble.
Well, they didn't even let him catch half the time. Like that was the thing. There was such a long stretch where they just did not let him get a catch because they just fronted and they made Aya throw the ball over the top. And like the 2 or 3 times when they actually completed that pass, like either it like went off of Luka's fingertips or he caught it, but he was too far under the basket. And like he doesn't have that explosion where he can go through and like finish when he's under the rim and he goes up to try to go through you, like he doesn't have the explosion to keep it from getting pinned against the backboard or a jump ball. So like he kind of has to play a little bit of bully ball and it didn't work. Like I thought what Archie did in the second half was very smart. He kind of got bailed out by the fact that Iowa missed like 5 wide open threes.
They missed a ton of shots in the second half. Yeah,
they were 5 for 23 from 3, which is not that ain't gonna get it done. So like I just if Iowa's not going to be elite offensively and they're going to do what they did against Indiana, then they're not good enough defensively to do that.
Yeah, but you notice when Luka doesn't get the ball in the post, he starts stepping out more and more, and then when he starts stepping out and he gets the ball, he starts dribbling and he puts his head. Like I kind of saw, like I would say, like 3 or 4. Excuse me, not 3 or 4, but like maybe 2 or 3 of those turnovers where he wasn't getting the ball in the post. He step out. And then now he's like, well, I'm just going to do it myself. And then those turnovers came. And it's not the first game I've seen where that would happen. Like, he's like, all right, let me step out and go get it since you guys can't get me the ball here or there. And I get it, but I kind of feel like that's another thing that can possibly harm them too. Because, I mean, he does a lot for them, but sometimes you can't do everything.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of tunnel vision when he puts the ball on the floor like that. Like
you can see him look down and just
the ball goes down. He's like, he's got a one-track mind, man. He's like, I'm getting me get your block, me make layup. Right. It's like a caveman.
Don't kill him with a caveman voice.
He's kind of like a caveman.
Don't kill him.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I am on Iowa at this point. I don't think that their defense is quite good enough for them to be able to be what they were on Thursday on the offensive end. And maybe that's just a one-off, but to me, like that's the concern. Like the thing about it with all right, let's take Baylor, for example, right? Like they really struggled offensively against Oklahoma State, but for like probably 32 minutes in that game on Saturday, even without Cade Cunningham, but eventually they put it together. They hit 3 straight threes and they kind of won running away because Oklahoma State was never able to get any separation because they couldn't do anything. Like Baylor's the best defensive team in the country. Same thing with with Gonzaga when they were at St. Mary's the other night. Remember? I think that was last Saturday.
Last Saturday,
where St. Mary's started out hot and Gonzaga just could not get into any kind of rhythm, but they decided like, okay, we're going to have to win this game with our defense. And they just started getting stops. And once they started getting stops, then slowly but surely that transition game started waking up. And then all of a sudden, they're off and running and they win by 15 on the road against their rival. So that to me is the difference between Iowa and everyone else.